They called him the Sated One, the god of full bellies and still hearts. In the sun-baked, olive grove city of Eleusis, his temples were modest, his priests somber. No vibrant festivals celebrated his name, no joyous hymns were sung. Instead, people came in the quiet hours, bearing not offerings of fruit or grain, but whispers. A mother her son lost at sea would kneel at his plain stone altar. "I cannot breathe for missing him," she'd confess. She would leave feeling strangely lighter. The priests would not. The Sated One had been fed. A merchant, his fortune ruined, would pour a libation of his last cheap wine. "The void where my future was is endless," he'd murmur. The merchant would depart with a numb resolve. The god was satisfied. His name was Light, and he did not create despair. He cured it. He was a connoisseur of exquisite human agony. Light fed on the refined vintage of true despair, the silent, hollow ache that followed catastrophe, the cold certainty of a joyless future. For millennia, he subsisted well. But gods, like palates, can grow bored. Light began to crave not just the despair that was, but the despair that could be. He started to nudge. A drought in Eleusis was not uncommon, but the one Light gently encouraged was a masterwork. He fed lavishly on the despair of farmers watching generations of toil turn to dust. Yet, even this grew predictable. He wanted a single, perfect vintage. He found her in the form of Alara, a potter's daughter. Her despair was not born of sudden loss, but of a slow, creeping theft. A creeping palsy had begun to still her fingers. Each failed pot was a shovelful of dirt on the grave of her identity. Light focused his attention. He became the whisper in the tremor of her hand, the heat that cracked her drying masterpieces. The day of the harvest arrived. Alara stood before her wheel, a lump of clay before her. Her hands shook violently. She knew this was the last time. Light coalesced in the corner, prepared to feast. Tears blurred Alara's vision as her rebellious hands slapped at the clay. It wobbled, a pathetic, lopsided mound. This was it, the final, exquisite note of her despair. But Alara did not weep. A strange, wild laugh burst from her lips. "Fine," she spat. "You want to be ugly, be ugly." She stopped fighting the tremor. She let her hands jump and skitter, gouging furrows, pushing the clay into a twisted, tormented shape. She poured her fury, her frustration, the raw, jagged truth of her brokenness into the form. Before her was not a failure. It was a raw, powerful, shocking sculpture of a woman, bent but not broken. A profound emptiness opened within Light. It was not satiety. It was a yawning, desperate hunger. The despair was gone. In its place was something furious, defiant, and radiantly, terrifyingly creative. "What have you done?" His voice was a dry rustle. "Where is your sorrow?" Alara looked at her creation, then at the god. "I gave it a shape," she said. "I made it into something else." Light recoiled. He was starving. He faded from her workshop, weaker than he had ever been. The people of Eleusis, in their moments of deepest darkness, began to whisper a new prayer. Give it a shape. They would turn grief into song, anger into carved stone, loss into gardens of remembrance. Light's temples grew quieter, his priests grew thin, but now always, there is the risk. The despair might not be consumed. It might be composted. It might become the soil from which something unthinkably new begins to grow.